So I picked up this vise, finally. I've needed one for so long, and it's just never been something that's happened. Now, I've always been looking for an older vise, but being in this like super small town, you can't find anything. I just figured, you know what, whatever, let's check the classifieds and stuff, and let's see what there is. And I found this for 35 bucks. So I went straight there, picked it up, and I had absolutely no idea what kind of vise this was. When I bought it, the jaws were gone. I guess the previous owner or the person that he got it off of, his wife was telling me that it came with their garage when they bought the house. So I'm not sure how many generations went by when someone made this, but it's just a little right angle piece of steel that they just welded on top and it just broke off. So I mean, it works. Now the reason they probably did that is because finding parts for this is going to be basically non-existent in Canada, because when I was trying to figure out what brand this is, there are no markings anywhere except for this little plate on the side. So it's been painted over at least like 2 or 3 times, but when I took the movable jaw out, it's actually a super dark blue. So this has had many paint jobs in its lifetime, but then when I noticed that this is a super dark blue, it's not, how do I explain this? It's not like a modern dark blue. That's old blue, if that makes any sense at all. Like old machinery has this like weird color of paint to it. Like the little lawnmower piece that's on the chair there, it's like a really weird green. But anyway, just seeing that color just kind of made me think, okay, well this is going to be really old. Like this is not a modern vise, just because of that color alone. So when I grinded off all the paint and everything on here, there's no actual stamps on here. So this was a painted label. So trying to take the paint off removed the label anyway, so there was really nothing I could do about that. So then I went into the deep depths of the internet. So after literally hours looking into this, I've concluded that this is Swordfish brand 150 millimeter vise. So this is like an old China company, but not like made in China, made in the People's Republic of China, which explains why it's so hard to find new jaws for this. And then after digging around a little bit further, I found out that the company was purchased by some other company in 1980. So that narrows this down to 1976 to 1979. So it's somewhere in that group, because in 1980 they rebranded, and then that was the made in China vices. So this is a 1970s vise. And I'm not going to be doing like crazy stuff with it or whatever. Like for me, this is going to be a mechanic's vise. So I'm literally just going to be like holding stuff or cutting or like pounding on it. So it doesn't have to be like super nice. I'm not going to do like one of those crazy restore videos. It's just going to be super modest. I'm just going to clean it up and everything, re-grease everything, just kind of get most of this old paint off, which I'm gonna try to not grind it. I'm just gonna use a wire brush to get what's loose off of it. Because of the age, this blue paint is most likely lead. I don't have lead testers, so I can't confirm, but I'd rather play it safe. Now the anvil had like a weld or something on it, so I'm gonna have to grind this down completely smooth. I figured it'll be easier to like sand this all down and everything, or at least like grind all these edges and stuff to make sure they're flush if it's bolted down. And since this is where it's gonna go, I might as well like get it all sorted out now, so then I can just unbolt it when it's like ready to finish up or whatever. So that way I can still kind of use it in between other projects, and then when I have more time I can continue trying to finish it or whatever. Fairly simple. I just like drilled straight down. Like I took a 1/2 inch drill bit and I just went straight through. But then as for the bottom, the first hole came out here, but the second one was right through this 2x4 because I had it too far over. So then I took a hole saw and I drilled a hole kind of all the way up, just a little bit further over. So that way, like the centering drill would have some wood to bite into, because it was literally like right on the edge of it from working. I just moved it over a little bit, drilled it all the way through. Everything's good. The hole saw was too short, so it wouldn't reach all the way to the top because of this little base right here. I then used this one, which is a little bit longer, but it still just wasn't enough. So then I had to cut a washer, and then I had just enough to make it all the way through to the top. And I just found these bolts with locking nuts and some old washers that I had kicking around. So these are just going to go right through there, and I'll put another washer on the bottom and the locking nut. And the fun portion is that these are all 14 millimeter. So the entire thing is metric. 150 millimeter vise, 14 millimeter bolts, all of it is metric. Welcome to the future. So now these can just go up here, and the locking nut can go on. So now we got a 14 mil and a 14 mil. Okay, easy. So now I can actually just start grinding everything down, cleaning everything up, trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with this jaw thing. Sounds like something out of a horror movie. The aliens are coming. Now it's fully attached, and technically I could just use it like this if I absolutely needed to. And given that it's the middle of winter right now, and it's freezing, I'm not really going to be working in here all that much, so, I mean, like, I might use this for like 1 or 2 projects throughout the winter, and then in the spring, I'll actually finish it up. I don't know. It'll be finished by the end of this video, but right now, I've already had this thing for a month. And as far as I've gotten is I picked it up, I figured out what it was, cleaned up the anvil a little bit, still needs a little bit more work, and I bolted it down. But I'm frozen right now, so I'm going inside to warm up, so, I don't know. I guess I'll see you guys in like a month when I actually like start sanding this down or something like that, or who knows what the hell's going on. But you don't have to wait for it. It'll just, you know, like magic. Woo. Okay, I don't even know where I was last on this project, but it's now March. I'm going to try and pick this up from here, but unfortunately I didn't have time to like actually fix it, which is why I didn't want to fix it to the workbench, because then my brain's like, oh, it's done, I can use it. If it works, it's going to stay like that. Right now, I have some time where everything that I currently need it for is done enough that I'm not going to need it for a couple days. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fix up a few more things on it to just kind of get it into like its like final state for now. And that's just where I'm going to call it. As for like the full restoration thing, like when I actually like make it look not garbage, then that'll end up coming after. So this is going to be kind of like a 2-part sort of thing. So there was like getting it, examining it, attaching it, and then just like making it work better. So that's this video. And then when I have more time, I can actually restore this thing fully. So I'm just saying that like, I'm not giving up on this. There's going to be more, and there's still more tools and stuff to happen. There's more upgrades to happen. I just have too much to do right now that I just need to get that thing working. I'm constantly battling the snow, like every few days. It has not stopped snowing for weeks. And like, it just never ends. And then I got to fix this whole car and everything. So basically, what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to finish this up so that way I can use it for a longer period of time. Because when I got it, someone had welded on this angle iron, and then again here angle iron, but it broke off because it was just like welds onto cast iron, and I don't know if they preheated the cast iron or not. So like, I don't know the history of it and everything, and it didn't work out very good. I just kind of put that on, and then I welded across from the tack, and it was working fine for a few weeks, and then it just cracked off when I was hammering on something. The hammering force wasn't enough to hold the 4 tacks that I put on. Finding jaws is like insanely hard around here. There's not a single store in town that sells them. You have to order them online, and then you have to order them by Vise model. And this Vise is from like the 70s. I'm not going to be able to find anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this in half. So I have 2 thicker pieces. I'm going to weld them together, and I'm just going to use that as like a straight piece to go in here. Because I figure the second piece of metal will protrude enough that it's not going to hit this lower jaw. And then from there, I can just drill and tap some holes, go right through here, find some screws or bolts or something that I have laying around, and I'm just going to make my own jaws out of these pieces of metal, which should be more than enough for the time being. I could probably even get like a few more years out of it before I actually have to like look into this again. I'm going to cut these 2 pieces in half right on the seam. I'm going to weld them together all the way around the outside, and then I'm just going to kind of line them up and see what I'm working with to see if it's even going to work. All right, this train wreck. So I cut off the little angle iron thing, and like it was an absolute disaster underneath it. I don't know what was going on, but there was like drill marks into it. So whatever like the previous owner was holding, or whichever previous owner, they were drilling through something that was held in here, and they're like drilling into it. So I had to weld all of those holes closed and like fixed all of that. And then through here, there was actually a crack. You can kind of see like the weld right there. And I fixed that. And then I had to fill in all of that. And like there's still low spots. But for now, it's good. It's solid. I can just like leave it like this. I don't really have to do anything. I even filled in on the edges, so that way I could like make it completely square. I cut that angle iron in half. I just tacked them together so it's 2 pieces thick. So that'll give me just enough space that the head of the jaw won't touch up against each other. It'll only be the removable jaws that clamp. So that'll be good. Now I just have to cut off all of this excess to make these flat, then spin them around so they can butt up where they need to be, and then I'll grind down the tops to make those completely flat. And those will be my jaws, at least until I can find actual ones to replace it with. Now the only other thing that I have to do, fix the spring. As you can see, the jaw is not moving. I don't know for how many years. This must have been sitting clamped the entire time. So the spring that's inside physically squished closer. So I'm going to have to find a new spring for it. So for the time being, I'm going to take that out and I'm going to add washers between each side of the spring to space it out. So that way it still has enough tension that when I loosen this, it'll immediately start pulling on the movable jaw. And hopefully that'll work. But again, right now it's just get it working so I can get some work done. And then at a later date, I'm actually going to like make it look good. I'm going to finish filling in like all the divots, grind it all down, paint it, all of that stuff. I have some leftover paint from an RDX that I painted, so it's going to be like pearl white, so that can match, you know, the totaled white top that I already did that I've been welding on and completely destroyed. So I can make this white so it'll look equally as bad as the rest of the garage. Anyway, I just got to cut this and finish it up. So I'll show you when that's done, because I got to put all the PPE on and everything, and I can't have that on with the camera on my head, so I'll just come back when that's done so I can give you a better understanding of what I was doing. Okay, so I'll just kind of run you down what I did here, just so it sort of makes sense what I'm about to do here. I took both of these blanks that were the angle iron, I cut it in half, put them together, welded all the way around for both pieces, so that way they were clamped together, and I ground them both down to the exact same size, so they line up exactly when they're put together. I clamped them on each side just to hold them in place. I measured 1 inch in from each side and then 1 inch from the bottom. That was my drill point. I used a 40mm drill bit to drill all the way in by 1 inch. Then I used a 50mm drill bit to drill through the removable jaws, so that way there's no threads for the bolt to actually go in. It only goes into the head of the vise. And then I used a 3/8 drill bit to drill halfway through into the second panel. I welded around that, and then I drilled it back out again, so that way it was 1mm in, and that was enough to countersink these like random M5 bolts that I found. I just happened to have exactly 4 of them, so 2 of them in here, 2 of them for here. The jaw protrudes just enough that there's a step. So now I just have to do the same thing here. Maybe go like this? No, it's not gonna work. This is in the way. Okay, maybe up here. And then maybe clamp like this. Okay, that's not sketchy at all. It'll work perfect. Now I just have to take this piece here. Just gotta slap this on here. So those are my marks. Center punch. And now I just have to drill a straight hole somehow. So we're starting to get like the ash coming out, because this is just gray iron. So instead of it making these like chips, it's making like dust kind of. So now that I know that I'm completely through that, then we can go over to the 40mm. Damn it. Nothing like consistency to make it easier. So let's just kind of put it like this, I guess. Yeah, that's not sketchy at all. Stay. Okay, now it's gonna drill about 1 inch in. Well, that's not inconvenient at all. What even? Okay, I got the holes all drilled out. That sucked. So now I just gotta try and thread them. And this is an M5 tap, so that way I can make some threads in here. Now this is a plug tap, because there's 3 different kinds of taps. There's tapered, which are for like starting threads. A plug tap, which is kind of like your run-of-the-mill middle ground. So this can be used for starting threads. It's a lot harder, and it's usually just used for making through holes. And then there's also bottoming taps. Bottoming taps are specifically for holes that don't have an opening on the end, because the cutting portion of the tap goes flush with the end. So when you're cutting all the way in and it bottoms out, bottoming, it's already made a full thread all the way to the very bottom. Whereas where a plug tap, which is this one, now that we're bottomed out, the very bottom threads aren't fully developed. So that's why I drilled it further than I needed to, so that way there was some like dead space in the end, so I could use this tap because that's all I have, and that'll at least make full threads for the portion that I need them to be. I just got these little tiny M5 bolts. Just take a 3mm Allen head, and those just thread in perfectly. Alright, so now I can start on this one. Now this is where a tapered tap would come in, because you can kind of see that these first few threads aren't fully developed, and a taper will have it significantly further. Like these only have shallow threads for the first 3 to 5, whereas a taper tap will be much further. So you can get it in further to start making your threads. Now, with a plug tap, you can still do it. It just takes a lot more work at the beginning. And with a bottoming tap, you pretty much have to use a tapered tap first, and then go for the bottoming tap, because you need to have developed threads at the beginning before it'll even work. A bottoming tap is also much better at excavating waste. It is good. Yep, that's gone forever. And we can start putting these in. Just hold it, because it's 3 in the morning right now, and I kind of want to go to bed. Man, this thing is going to benefit from some new grease. That'll be a tomorrow thing. So let's just get this in here, just a test fit. Not too bad, considering this didn't cost me anything so far. $35 Vise, some elbow grease. Now, tomorrow, I can finish grinding these down, so that way they're completely flat. I can use the files for that, so that way I can just kind of like dial them in so they're perfectly square. And then I will take this apart again, so that way I can fix this. See, the spring still works. It's just not as good as it was. So I just need to space it out a little bit, because whoever owned this, they left it clamped its entire life. So it compressed that spring over years, and it just doesn't work very well. That's what it is, I guess. 35 bucks. Can't really go wrong with that. So, in my world, I'll get back to this tomorrow. In yours, it'll just be a second. I have this out. So what I'm thinking, a good mod for the future would be to add a bearing right here, so it's not just running into steel. That would be pretty cool. But for the time being, I'm just going to put a bunch of grease right here. And then when I put it through, I'm going to add... So 2 washers, and then the spring will go in, and then 2 more washers. Then I can just clamp this together and put that pin back in. And that's restoring tension on the spring. So now I just gotta grease all this up. So this is just like axle grease. Now ideally getting a whole new spring would be preferred, but finding parts for this thing is like, you know, impossible. However, there's an Irwin vise that's almost identical to this, so I'm gonna look into getting replacement parts for that and see if they'll fit this. Because then I could just replace everything brand new. I don't know if these are gonna reach all the way down. Nope. Oh yeah, this isn't gonna be tedious at all. There's probably people screaming in the comments right now telling me how I'm supposed to be doing this. Stay. Oh my god, I think that's working. It is! That's awesome! Oh, it's way better. Oh, it's so smooth. Wow. Would you look at that? Put this back in. That right there was the biggest issue. Was just doing super fine adjustments. I could go 1.5 turns and then pull this back. And now it's pretty good. Like I could probably fight the spring, but it goes right back. It's not pretty, but man, does it work better than it did before. The spring is all fixed up. It actually has removable jaws now. I mean, it clearly still looks like garbage, but this isn't a restoration project. This is just, I need a vise that I can literally beat on so I can get some stuff done. And hopefully those Irwin replacement parts will just bolt right in, because it's almost the exact same vise. Like if you look at the side of Irwin Record, or Record, however they want to say it. If you look at the number 6 vise, it's literally like identical. The only difference is this isn't here, and it says Irwin across, instead of having this little plaque. That's it. Like, it is identical. Here's hoping those parts just bolt right in, and then I'll have replacement parts in the future when I actually have time to, like, fully restore this thing and actually sand it down and repaint and everything, so that I can just readily buy parts online to bolt onto this instead of having to make them. I don't know. That's it for now. I mean, like tons of cleaning to do now because I just have stuff everywhere from this project and just like a bunch of other crap and whatever. And I got to start working on this thing again. So hopefully you found something useful here. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already, or don't do any of it. I'm not telling you what to do.